Hello and welcome to Simblified, the show that's guaranteed to make you sound smarter without actually making you smarter. And as you will find out in this episode, this is quite an achievement. The not making you smarter bit, that is. But to place the horse before the cart, I am Naren, and this is, please welcome my co-host Tony.
Hi.
It's
We've had a run on the simplified bank, Naren, and two co-hosts have gone missing.
Yeah. And just like the other slightly less famous bank, which experienced a run, namely Silicon Valley Bank. And as we are recording this, apparently Credit Suisse is also undergoing run. People are saying that they're planning to change their name to Debit Suisse now because there's no credit left. Yeah. So I'll just dive in directly into what I wanted to talk about today.
Yeah.
And that is, I was reading about Silicon Valley Bank. I mean, it's very hard not to read about it. It's in your face everywhere. Everyone and his uncle wants to tell you about their opinion about Silicon Valley Bank.
But what is Silicon Valley Bank, to be honest?
It's a bank in the Silicon Valley. So this is peak simplified for you. Silicon Valley Bank is a bank in Silicon Valley. So now that is, thank you and see you next fortnight.
But it's a normal, common retail bank.
It's a retail bank, but the different, it has savings accounts, current accounts, everything that works. It's a full service bank. And what happened apparently was because they were in Silicon Valley, they had a lot of deposits from venture capitalists. So from startups, basically. So what startups do is they fund. Venture capitalists fund startups, right? And not all that money is used by the startup immediately. They need to survive for several years. That's how the startup model works. You develop whatever it is you are developing, get it to a position of market dominance or market readiness or whatever it is. And then you start making money. So you need to have whatever your VC has funded you to last until then. Mostly people's salaries and things like that. So all
your
that money
shouldn't run away, basically.
Yeah, your runway. Exactly, yeah. And the people kept it
because it's startups, it's safe to assume that it's only funding money, right? They're not making any revenue or any profits.
In fact, if you actually make revenue, or somebody had told me actually, I had very serious, right? So I met a VC a couple of years ago actually. And he was very seriously, I was meeting him socially. And I just asked him, how do you pick targets? How do you pick? And this is an Indian VC in an Indian context. And he asked me very seriously, do you really want to, would you like to start a startup? I mean, would you like to? I said, why not? I mean, people are, falling over each other to give you millions of dollars. Why not? So he says, number one, you need to have a short and clever name. And this is it's very serious. Unless you have a short and clever name, nothing, no way.
Next how many syllables allowed? 3 syllables.
5 syllables, or 3 syllables or 5, something like that. He said 3 syllables or 5, I forget. But it has to be short, it has to be clever, it has to be punny, and it has to, something like that. Yeah. So this inordinately,
clearly, we know why Silicon Valley Bank failed, because it is already failing on this test of how long the name should be.
Far larger than, longer than 3. So that was one. Second is, he said, at least one or possibly preferably all of your founders have to be from the IIT.
Oh, yeah. Hey, but this is a legit industry now, no? There are people who just...
That's what he told me. So I said, I don't have... I'm too old to go to... He says, doesn't matter. There's an entire... there's a bank of people available. You just empanel them. You have 3 of them and you be the 4th guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you sort of write it into the fine print that they can't run away with the company, and then there you go. And the third thing he told me, among other things, which really, he says, you cannot have the remotest chance of making a profit.
Why? Because then you're not growing fast enough.
No. If you're making a profit, they'll tell you, go to the bank, they'll give you funds. We'll give you funds only if you're... So, and he said it with such seriousness that it must have been true, right? So what do I know? Anyway, I couldn't think of anything which fit. I didn't know how to get, I didn't, first of all, I couldn't come up with even our podcast has more than 3 syllables. So that we are complete losers in that respect. So, yeah. So that's what was happening
to Silicon Valley Bank. Basically, it was all...
They had a lot of money. I mean, all their customers had money, which wasn't really theirs to spend. So they were just kept it in the bank. So this was in the glory days of the quantitative easing and all, when America was flush with funds, then it was 1% and 0.5% interest rates at the bank. So these people decided to invest it in treasury bills.
Okay.
So these were getting money.
Silicon Valley Bank. Now this is funds removed from.
These are all current accounts, so they are not paying any interest, and they were getting 1% or whatever on the, so they put it there. But the problem was those things have a 10-year maturity.
Great.
And these instruments, I mean, you'd get them only after 10 years. And your customers could ask you money tomorrow. And that's what happened. So when they asked for their money, these people would have to sell their bonds. But now the interest rate has gone to 5%.
Oh, okay.
So your interest, the coupon rate is 1%, the actual rate is 5%. So you get, instead of $100, you get like 96 or 95 rupees or whatever, $95 a bond. Just, a discount so that your coupon rate works out to the prevailing market rate.
Yeah.
And that's a straight hit, right? So every time somebody sort of draws their money, takes their money out, you lose a bit of your capital. And so they got wiped out. And they got more than wiped out because typically your deposits are far in excess of your capital. And banking, I think, is like 10x or 8x or something like that. And then the Fed stepped in saying that, no, we'll take care of it, so on and so forth. And now the tech world is divided into two. There is one, our old friend Balaji Srinivasan, who feels that it's all the Fed's fault because all these years, there was no inkling that they would increase interest rates so drastically. And now they just did it without warning. And they caused this bank to go bust. So it's the fault of the Feds. And other people are saying, dude, it's called credit risk. These are known things. You have to match, and you hedge your credit risk. You take different, there are mechanisms available for this. And you have to build that into the cost, or you have to tell people, give them money back, refuse to take money, do whatever it is.
Don't put all your money into this
treasury bills. Yeah, but end of the day, you have funds lying in a bank, you have to park it somewhere. And the thing is, the maturities have to match.
Great.
So maturities are not matching. That it was some such thing. And people were then talking about the complexity of the thing, right? So everything in finance has become extremely complex.
Right.
So they have something known as CDOs, collateralized debt obligations. It's all very roundabout way of doing very straightforward things.
Great.
But
bankers are playing golf all the time.
Yeah. So somebody told me, a banker I know. Have I told you about that? 963 rule?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. 963 rule. He's a banker and he told me. He says, bankers, they lend at 9%, they borrow at 6%, and at 3 p.m. they go to play golf. So that is the 9, 6 and 3. That's how the bankers live. Yeah. So all of you listening out there, if you aren't already a banker, please become one. Even in this difficult time, it's still the best profession.
Banking is the opposite of simplified because it is complexified. You take something like straightforward and create a complex instrument out of it so that no one can understand it.
And that's what somebody, a lot of smart people are saying. And they were saying it even before all this happened, that finance purposely just give me a minute. I've been inundated with these calls talking about banks wanting to lend me money. For some reason, I think, with all banking collapsing everywhere, they've sort of got it into their mind that Narendra Shenoy is the borrower of the last resort. Let's lend to. So if I want personal loan, if I want a housing loan, if I want a car loan, anything, I just have to say the word and it'll be there. Yeah. So it's nice to feel wanted. I'm feeling really important. I'm pretty sure none of you are getting calls like this, only me. So I'm really special in this world. But such as it is. Yeah. So the smart people are saying that they purposely make it complicated and complex because banking is such a risky proposition that it's a miracle that people actually trust in a bank, because you are lending money to a bank or depositing money in a bank, assuming that you are going to get it back anytime, and they're doing the most horrific things with your money when you're not looking. So if they really told you what they were doing with your money, you would just scream in terror, take your money and run away, keep it, and make a little hole in the ground and put it inside.
Never visit the kitchen of your favorite restaurant, right?
Yeah.
The kitchen area is completely off limits.
Once you see what's happening, you don't want to. So that's the reason why banks love complexity, is what many of the smart guys say. But one of them said, one of the reasons that banking instruments have become more complex is that there is something called a Flynn effect. Now, this Flynn effect is, it says...
You're at risk of becoming smarter now, Naren.
Yeah, it says that intelligence... So this Flynn, his name was James R. Flynn, and he was quite a character. So James R. Flynn was a moral and a political philosopher, and also something called an intelligence researcher. So he was researching into intelligence across populations, across time, over long periods of time. And his observation, and like these were hard studies, done like with numbers. His observation was that the intelligence of the population at large is increasing by a steady 3 basis points every decade or something like that. 3 points. Yeah. And even so now that people are listening to Simplified, that's even higher. But but this is something. And they did all kinds of tests, right? So they tried to see, first of all, verified so they got SAT tests, they got all kinds of, school testing, IQ testing, everything. And wherever they could see that the intelligence was increasing. Not only was the intelligence increasing, they found that the intelligence was increasing across the spectrum. So there was one hypothesis which said that there is the kind of network effect. So you're a smart guy, so you're in the top 5% of your class, and therefore you get special attention and you hang out with other people who are in the top 5% of your class.
Right.
So naturally your IQ is going to go up. And they found that yes, the students in the top 5% of the class, their IQ was going up, but the students in the bottom 5% of class, their IQ was going up just about the same amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Then they thought that maybe, it is, so IQ tests basically test on crystallized knowledge, that is knowledge like verbal knowledge and arithmetic and things like that. Things which have been around for a long while, which have been taught. And your grasp on arithmetic will probably be better than your great-grandfather's grasp on arithmetic, because, you pass through 3 or 4 generations, and like a much larger proportion of people around you are good at arithmetic than possibly when your great-grandfather was around. So it's natural that you would be smarter or better at arithmetic than he was. But they found that this was not the case. The abilities in arithmetic and verbal ability hadn't increased at all. What had increased was abstract reasoning.
Okay.
And they found that, again, everything is hypothesis and it's very difficult to nail down a particular reason. But they think that it's something to do with how society and how entertainment itself has changed. Back in the day, people were... So James Flynn himself tells about an example. He was talking to his grandfather. And grandfather was a racist, right? So he had a low opinion of black people and things like that. And James Flynn, completely, left-leaning liberal, and he was horrified that his grandfather had racist views. So he's trying to teach his grandfather the importance of empathy. He's saying, what if you wake up in the morning and find out you're a black man?
Yeah.
How would you face the world? And the grandfather just can't imagine it. He says, it's not possible. I mean, we have so many people around us. How many white people do you know who slept and woken up as black people? So he's not able to, take the abstract view at all.
Yeah.
But we find it effortless. So that's one of the things that I found, sort of intuitively true. We are able to empathize or put ourselves into a situation. You are able to feel the pain of someone living in Turkey, for example, during the terrible earthquake. So Flynn's granddad was like, I don't live in Turkey. And, that would have been the end of the argument.
Yeah. So but in general, based on where you start from, right, there will be an automatic increase in your levels. Right? As in, you're no longer sort of deriving everything from first principles. Right?
Yeah, so that is crystallized knowledge. So that is calculus. That is probability. That is Bayes' theorem. You don't have to invent Bayes' theorem. Bayes already invented it for you.
Yeah.
But
no, even chess ratings, for instance, would be much higher now than ever before, right? Just because of sheer access.
So that is more like a skill. And, so I happen to know about chess because I play very badly, but I do play chess.
You've never told us.
Well kept secret. One never, So anyway, everyone whoops my ass. So in fact, that could be the title of my sex tape, actually. If everyone.
Oh, wow.
At chess.
Black or white, everyone.
Everyone. But the thing is that back in the day, many positional principles were not known. And people figured out these positional. So there are openings where it's like you have the pawns. If you're castled king side, the pawns in front of your white king, if you're white, are G and H. And normally, in the old days, people would never advance the G and H pawns because, you would be creating weaknesses in front of your king. Today's grandmasters are completely unafraid. That's because they've seen a lot of computer analysis. You can throw these things at computers and check. And the computer is, it calculates things much better. So it plays moves. And if a computer is playing a move, it's probably a good move. So grandmasters try to reverse engineer them. So that kind of learning is there, which is not the case in general scholastic tests. The other amazing thing that they found out was that the highest gains were in subjects that were the most difficult to learn about. So, because, there's no standardization. It's just, it's just puzzles. It's just logic puzzles. There's some, reasoning kind of situations. So there are there's something called Raven's progressive matrices. So basically you get these pictorial. So, you get a square with one of the squares colored black and all the three other squares are white. And then the lower one is black and then the other one is black. So you guess the fourth one. So, it's like you try to recognize a pattern, find a pattern and do that. Yeah. And in those kind of tests, which are pretty abstract and which are very unlikely that people, and remember, these are population-wide studies. Okay. So you could conceivably have a small pocket of people who are very prepared for it. But the population at large wouldn't. And yet they were far better at solving them than their earlier generations were.
Okay. And what's the reasoning for this?
So they think that it is societal and it's a combination of entertainment and social interactions. Entertainment includes gaming, movies, as you know, today, as opposed to maybe 2 or 3 decades ago, we are consuming probably 10x or maybe more entertainment than we were. And each kind of entertainment brings in its own complexity. So it seems to have an uplifting effect on your intelligence. There is also some research which shows a negative Flynn effect. All this has happened in advanced economies, right? So you are less likely to see the Flynn effect, though it has the Flynn effect there even in the poorest countries, because overall living conditions have improved everywhere. But the hypothesis is it also has to do with living conditions, with nutrition, for example. Even one researcher pointed out that there is a strong correlation with stopping of lead in gasoline to intelligence outcomes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because lead is a known, anti sort of intelligence kind of element, right? So if you have a lot
and
of
just on the
exposure to
nutrition point, right? I think populations have been growing taller with each generation, especially in India also, purely because of just getting enough sort of
food,
nutrition, right? So
So that these are all. There are many such.
But would you say that therefore it is an argument in favor of living in urbanized settings as opposed to
I was thinking about that. I couldn't find anything which sort of mapped rural versus urban. But I would think that the effect should be slightly more pronounced in an urban setting than a rural
urban chaos. If you've had to take the Mumbai local twice, then you're automatically solving multiple puzzles.
The sheer complexity of living in a housing society, just sheer complexity. Like you have two WhatsApp uncles, you have one uncle who doesn't like you getting your female friends or male friends or whatever kind of friends, another one who doesn't like you going around in shorts and a t-shirt.
What you're eating,
you haven't shaved. I used to have no more now. A gentleman used to live next door. He used to be very upset if he found any young person who had not shaved, stubble and all. So he would call them. He had a very regal style. So he'd be sitting one place, he would call them, and that person would have to come to him. And then they would get a earful and then they would go away.
Wow.
I find that very cute, So, all these things contribute to increase in intellect. When you get a random uncle like that who calls you and then upbraids you for not shaving, I think you go out and start thinking and automatically your brain cells open up and
next day you're figuring out ways as to how you can avoid him without shaving still. But so this increase in intelligence on average by 3 points a decade is also has an effect in the investment world. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So that connection is very tenuous and other people have shot it down. And the connection was that because, people are getting smarter and smarter people tend to get into banking because of the 963 rule, which is so awesome. And
also they get paid a ton of money and people have...
it's the whole thing. Banking is... I didn't realize this till much later in life. Otherwise, you'd have found me queuing up outside every possible bank looking for a job when I was younger. But you do get a lot of money. I'm not sure how much longer though, because banking as an institution is really being shaken up. A lot of, brokerages, right? So there used to be a lot of brokerage jobs. People used to be there to take your share orders and then, execute them and then do the paperwork. And as technology started catching up, it's gone, right? And Zerodha, I believe it doesn't even charge brokerage for if you do a normal share transaction. It just survives on the forwards and options and whatever, futures and options or whatever it is.
Yeah,
and
I think there's a fee per transaction, which is good enough.
Someone was telling me, I don't know. I buy my shares, but you buy your shares once in a blue moon. Somebody tells you at a party and then, rest of the year you find it steadily going down. So that provides you entertainment. But that's... that's what usually happens. One of my aunts used to say that. So she used to tell people at parties that if you really want to make money, you have to pay me a fee. I'll tell you every time I buy a share, you just have to go and sell that share. That's all. Because the moment I buy it, it goes down.
So I think the old adage is that misery is halved when it's shared. It's actually misery is halved or doubled when it is shares, right? So
Another one of my friends who's a merchant banker. Back in the day, they used to be called investment bankers, used to be called merchant bankers. So he once told me, that I asked him very sincerely, how do you make money on the stock market? So he told me that if you want to make a small fortune on the stock market, you have to first start with a large fortune. So that's so true.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this is, when I read about the Flynn effect, I was quite intrigued. And first I thought it was one of those Dunning-Kruger kind of semi-jocular, kind of things. But this is a real thing, well researched, and people are still researching on the causes and effects of all things that contribute to the Flynn effect.
Interesting.
And they haven't really done a study on simplified and Flynn effect, but I'm pretty sure that's
tell me something. Doesn't the IQ test also depend on like how it's been set up and normalized and stuff? Like, how do they set it up, first of all? Like, isn't there is no cultural element to it at all? Or like, can a kid in Africa and a kid in India take the same IQ test that's normalized in the US and have, sort of similar kinds of intelligence on average?
I guess that to a small extent, I mean, reasoning is reasoning, but to a small extent, yes. Certain kinds of reasoning, so verbal, for example, will have to be completely different, right? So, because
there was this whole thing, right? Which is that there used to be two, I mean, I'm guessing there are multiple now. There used to be two syllabuses when we were syllabi when we were growing up. There was state syllabus and then there was CBSE. And CBSE kids generally tended to do better on entrance exams, right? And basically, so there was a huge rush from parents to sort of push kids towards CBSE education. And entrance test is at the end of the day like a sort of normalized test of some kind of intelligence, right? So that's where I was coming from. I mean, I'm not sure if like it has a parallel here.
I know this phenomenon when even my kids went to state board, and that was because the school was very close to our house, and I'm a schooling skeptic, right? So I have absolutely no faith in the proposition that schools contribute in any way to anything, right? So be it character.
Schools or banks. Pick one. As to having the least impact.
So, and in fact, most of the high-end, all the name brand schools are actually worse in some ways because they're exclusionary. You meet only one kind of person. You lose out on a lot of, like one of the big things about the world is there are all kinds of people. So if you cannot have an exposure to all kinds of people or as many kinds of people as you want, you just get one particular kind of person who just speaks the same kind of way. Everyone speaks the same way. Everyone thinks the same way. Everyone in the same socio-economic category. It's all, to my mind, I'm not conducted studies or anything. To my mind, it's not a great idea. So I mean, it's very obvious, right? And basically there is there was the actual real sort of funny / horrible reporting around Silicon Valley Bank, where someone said their board actually consisted of a diverse set of people, and they might have been distracted by looking at filling the board with diverse set of people rather than just white men or something like that. But I mean, study after study has proven, right, that if you have a diverse set of people making decisions, they lead to sort of better outcomes purely because of the different points of view that are, imbibed into that decision itself. So, growing up also, I mean, you can clearly see that, if you've sort of stepped out of your home state or home city and spent time elsewhere and gone through that, hard grind of trying to understand people and being forced to because you don't have a choice, you usually sort of become a more well-rounded sort of person, or at least have exposure to those beliefs. So I think in general, and in the specific, also in the specific, you do lose out. For example, if you're from very posh school, like I don't know, Doon School or whatever, I don't know, they open doors, right? So you go there and people, this happens everywhere. I mean, in India, it happens with the IITs, the IIMs and everything. So if you're not from the IITs or the IIMs, you need to work that much harder to prove yourself. And oftentimes you don't even get the opportunity, right? So, I mean, how do you, if no one's ever going to let you at any towards any position of decision making, how are you ever going to prove your mettle? So to that extent, it makes, every parent wants the best outcome for their children. So it makes sense, for them to put them into schools which are good.
Yeah.
But
No, I think Sidin was telling us last week, right,
Yeah.
that credentialism is a big thing in India.
Yeah.
So, like your VC friend told you that you need to find someone from IIT only, then I'm giving
absolutely,
you
yeah.
and make no profits. Yeah. So, all of this are very real. But on the normalized course per se, obviously it may not necessarily have any effect.
Yeah, in fact, probably the other way around. So and this is one thing, it's completely beside the point. So I have a small factory. We manufacture, automotive components. We employ a lot of blue collar workers, right? So our typical worker profile is like maximum they would have studied up to 12th standard. Not like very few. There are only one or two guys who are like who've done their graduation. Most of them are 12th or less. Many of them are not even 10th standard. But the cleverness and the ingenuity, the ability to lateral thing, it's incredible. Yeah. I am almost always outclassed. On the shop floor, I'm like, there'll be 5 people. I'll probably be, to be very sort of arrogant, I'll be 4th best. No, I'm probably not. There'll be at least one guy dumber than me, but on a good day. But they're clever. People are clever.
Yeah.
We are more educated. So is there a correlation?
Yeah.
Little bit, but probably not as much as we would like to imagine.
Yeah, street smartness. But one funny thing that happened when you mentioned Flynn Effect and Silicon Valley Bank, and I Googled obviously these two terms together. First thing that came up was some gentleman called Patrick Flynn, who is the COO of UK and EMEA or something for them. But there is this other sort of guy who came up who was named Joseph Gentile, who was the Chief Administrative Officer of SVB Securities. Prior to joining them in 2007, he was the CFO for Lehman Brothers Global Investment Bank, where he directed the accounting. And then these guys had to put out a clarification saying he left some 18 months before the crash or something like that. So it's not like directly responsible and stuff like that. So
yeah. He's good at igniting long fuses.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that I found interesting, the Flynn effect. So, the TLDR is, it probably has nothing to do with the complexity of banking instruments and definitely nothing to do with the fact that SVB Bank crashed. The interesting thing is that intelligence across the world, across populations, across age groups, across socioeconomic categories is steadily increasing. Very slowly, but steadily increasing. And that is something I didn't know about. So I thought it would be a good topic to talk about.
Yeah. Based on the state of the world, you wouldn't assume that people are getting smarter, right? Like it seems like
that's another very interesting thing. Maybe we should do an episode on it sometime. So there is this extremely good thinker. His name is Gurvinder. His I think Twitter handle is G_S_Bhogal. So he is a person of Indian origin, a programmer or something based in the UK, who's taken to writing about psychology, behavioral stuff, and that kind of stuff. Very interesting, very nice. I'll see if I can put a few of his posts or tweet threads or whatever in the description. So he was talking about one of the pieces which I found so insightful. He was talking about stupid really stupid viewpoints. For example, like the election in America was rigged by the Democrats to make sure that Donald Trump lost. That's really stupid. There's no evidence for it. And you would imagine that the stupid people would fall for that thing.
Yeah.
But so in that particular case, of course, the jury is still out. But there have been many studies. The biggest study was by this guy named Dan Kahan, who's a researcher at Yale, I think, who found that it's actually the other way around. And the more ridiculous or stupid the belief, the more likely is it that an intelligent person who is otherwise intelligent, and they has held it.
Now,
And they
explains the
dictionary.
state of banking altogether.
Yeah, that sort of ties in. Yeah, but it's a lovely piece. I'll put a link, and I urge all of you to read it. And maybe we should do a little episode on that too, because it's counterintuitive, right? And yet hard research shows that is exactly what is happening.
As in, more intelligent people are likely to buy into conspiracy theories.
Exactly. And there is a good reason for it also. Yeah. So because you're optimizing for your place in society. And so, whatever position you hold has signaling value to your support group or peer group or whatever group you identify with.
Okay.
And once you take that position, absurd position, you try to rationalize itself to you. You try to rationalize that position, right? And you are going to be more successful at rationalizing that position to yourself if you're smarter. So therefore, smarter people will hold the more absurd position.
Is this like Manu Joseph effect or something like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was just totally thinking about Manu Joseph. Terrific, smart guy, and the kind of bilge he believes in. With all respect to followers of Manu Joseph.
Or he writes or genuinely takes a contrarian view just to rile up people.
Oh yeah, sometimes, it could be polemics as well. I don't waste my time reading his stuff. But it could well be, in all fairness. But that kind of thing. So that I'll put
Flynn
the
Effect,
GS Mogul article in the thing. Yeah.
Thanks, Naren. So I think all that's left for you to do is take it away.
Yeah. Stay safe. Stay increasingly intelligent and stay simplified. See you next week. Cheers. Bye.